Well, welcome as we get ready to get started. This is a Back to Business, Navigating Your Brand for Success in Uncharted Waters. And this is Thrive, Creating and Managing Successful Growth in Uncharted Waters. This is the third in our series on Back to Business. The first started with Realign, getting your internal team in order. Then we had Survive, which is what to do if you're just surviving through the COVID pandemic. And then we have Thrive, which is today, which is what to do if you happen to be a business that's thriving. And then later, we'll be doing Pivot, which is how to look at your brand and prepare it for the next normal. So let's get started. Just a little bit about me. I have 20 years of experience. I am the Director of Brand Insights at Able&Co, and we are a marketing firm located here in Briar Creek, which is part of Raleigh, North Carolina. One question as we get ready to get going. So, are you surviving or thriving? So right now, we're obviously kind of been into the pandemic for a bit of time, and businesses have been impacted in different and various ways. So some are surviving and they are just barely making it through. We covered that in our last webinar, and there are those who are just making it through. They're maybe relying heavily on loans. They're seeing their customer base shrink. They're not really necessarily sure how they're going to make it through to the end of the year or beyond. But there are some companies that are thriving, and those companies may have seen either even sales, they're still doing very well as they were before the pandemic hit, or perhaps they've even grown sales or grown their business in some way. So if you're surviving, as we reviewed in the last one, now is the time for you to be focusing your strength. You want to focus in and do those things that you are best at. Talk to your current audience. And if you're thriving, what we want you to learn today is that now is the time to expand and be thinking about the future. So let's talk a little bit about thriving. If you're thriving, you may be saying, why worry? What do I need to worry about? My business is doing well. I've got sales, I have leads, I have traffic, whatever it is, however you measure success for your business. But you may wonder, why worry? Well, there's several different reasons that you may want to be thinking about the future. There could possibly be a shift in the marketplace. As we've seen a lot of times, certain things come up, certain things go down, businesses come and go, and so there will be changes that are certainly going to happen in your marketplace. You may see changes in customer behavior. Right now, we keep seeing shifts in online buying versus in-person buying, whether or not people need that face-to-face connection. And that's a B2B and also B2C, that you see these shifts in customer behavior. Until that kind of settles down, it's really good to stay on top of it. You may have a flood of new customers that are only temporary. They may not be in it for the long haul. So you need to know what to do when that peak maybe subsides. And then you may end up, if you're not already feeling the pinch of a supply chain issue, you may end up eventually having to deal with one, as we see that more and more supply chains are being disrupted further downstream. Those things that happened in February, March, or April in the manufacturing stream are now beginning to hit certain other sectors. And then you may be what's called a lagging indicator industry. So for instance, sometimes if your industry relies on other industries for your business, you may find that your response to the pandemic is kind of lagging behind the rest of the country. Now, by now, I would think it would have caught up to you, but it depends on your sales cycle. If you have a very long sales cycle, you may not yet be seeing the effects of the pandemic. And so you want to stay on top of that. You may see new competitors as competitors have had to shift into different markets and have had to change what they're doing. You may have seen some competitors entering your market space that beforehand were not really part of that. And so you want to keep your eye peeled for that. And then lastly, one thing that we all need to worry about is the second wave of the pandemic. Actually, in a survey of CFOs, that was one of the top worries for the future, was the second wave of pandemic. So it's something you also want to keep your eye on. So if you're thriving, congratulations, it's great. I'm thrilled for you, but you definitely want to still keep your eye on the ball. It's not the time to relax. In fact, it's the time to put more energy into your brand. So let's talk about what you would do. The first thing you need to do is ask yourself, Why am I thriving? Why is your company thriving? Now is the perfect time to step back and do an analysis, because we've had this event has affected your business in some way. So it's now the perfect time to step back and say, okay, what in this period worked? What didn't work? What could we do better? What are we really doing well? And once you look at those, it helps you to have that information moving forward. So most companies who are thriving right now fall into one of two categories. Now, you may not fall into this evenly, but you're either thriving because of the pandemic or you're thriving despite the pandemic. So let's look at despite the pandemic. These are those that were affected, their industry was affected, but yet they still managed to rise above it all. So you may have been ahead of the curve. For instance, you may have already had technological innovation as part of your brand. You may already have been servicing your customers in a way that when the pandemic hit, you were able to just move smoothly and transition more into that area. You may be in just a very strong industry that has been bolstered or that has just weathered the pandemic right now. So you might be in a really good industry. Real estate kind of looks like it might be one of those types of industries, but we'll see exactly how that plays out as we approach third quarter. You may be reaping the rewards of brand loyalty. We preach that here all the time at Able&Co to our clients, the importance of brand equity and brand loyalty, because in times of trial, in times of struggle, that equity helps to carry you through to an extent. It helps to keep your clients closer to you. Or perhaps you were smart and you shifted your offerings. It may be that you decided to offer something in addition to your typical services or your goods that was really able to meet the needs of the changing landscape. Now, you may actually be thriving because of the pandemic. This you would know if you suddenly saw like a rapid spike. Obviously the obvious ones are, that people who are in the hand sanitizer business or something like that, they obviously had a boon during the pandemic because of it. So if you were one of these essential services or an essential type product, then certainly you saw a spike as demand increased against what the supplies typically were. In some cases, it's possible maybe your competitors just went away. Sometimes these competitors have gone away and opened up more space for you to do business. And so you being one of few, you may see more traffic and more business because of that. There's also been these changes in buyer habits. So you may be benefiting from the fact that people are buying online instead of buying in person, or you may have benefited from the fact that people want delivery service or another type of service. So it may be that you had benefit from the changes that you saw in buyer habits. So how do you go about figuring all this out? Well, one of the things that we suggest that you do is do kind of just a mini SWOT. You could do almost like a little miniature workshop. We do these for our clients all the time, where we just kind of say, okay, let's pause and let's look at the internal and external good things and bad things. So we know that, our internal good things are our strengths, our internal bad things are our weaknesses. External opportunities are positive and external threats are negative. And you look at those things and you can figure out exactly where you were strong and where you need to improve. This is the time when a lot of people are going to be saying, well, we've never done this before. We've never done it this way before. Well, right now, I love saying this, now is the time. Now is the time to try those things that you've been thinking about doing. Now is the time, especially if you're thriving in the way the marketplace is right now, it is a time for you to try something new. You see a lot of people are innovating. A lot of people are trying entrepreneurial type ideas or trying new things, and some are succeeding and some are failing. So now is this time of experimentation to try. You can either be stopped by the obstacles that are in place, or you can be driven by this opportunity to go ahead and experiment. So I'm talking about do innovation. You really want to invest in your innovation and make sure that you're looking for ways to grow, looking for ways to have new ideas. But you also want to make sure that you're doing the things necessary to ensure the future. So make sure that you're balancing your risk versus your reward. Now's also the time for you to step back and think long term. Look at that 5-year plan, look at that 10-year plan, and see what could I maybe make happen sooner because of the current climate. There may be opportunities for you to bring some of those goals forward and take a giant step as opposed to your typical normal year by year steps. And then another thing is now is the time to expand. And we're not talking about necessarily just expanding your business or expanding your offices, because that might seem to go against the grain. But if you have the money and if you have that cash flow, now is the time to invest in the future. We have 5 different ways that we, particularly in relation to branding, marketing, and communication, think that you can expand. So one of the ways is expanding your brand. Looking at your brand and figuring out how can you grow that. Expand your relationships with your current clients, current vendors, and all the current relationships you have. Expanding that market and audience. How do you go for some new people? Go after that new crowd. Expand engagement. How are the ways that you're touching people? What are the touch points that you have, and can you make those better? And then expanding finally on ideas, expanding on your thought process, and really becoming an idea generator during this time. So let's talk about those a little bit. First, let's talk about expanding your brand. So one of the things that you can definitely do during this time is you can emerge with stronger brand equity if you seize this opportunity. Build strong brand connections. And by that, I mean really take the chance as you're talking to clients to enforce your brand. Make sure that brand message is coming through loud and clear. Make sure your brand promise is coming through loud and clear. Make sure people understand so that you're beginning to own more and more of that mind share within that client's mind. They're beginning to rely on you more and more. So by building that stronger brand connection, you're going to reap the rewards of your brand equity later. This is a great time to consider co-branding. We've seen, Lysol partnering with airlines. We've seen, different companies coming together, especially as you look at like brands like Grubhub or Postmates partnering with restaurants so that they can deliver that food out there in a great and efficient manner. Also, expanding your brand by being a good corporate citizen. Go out and really put your best face forward. Now is the time, if you have that extra revenue, to really share that with the community and to really put, we know that the Edelman Trust Barometer says that companies who are showing their empathy and are showing their relationship to the community right now are gaining trust, and they're gaining brand equity and gaining strength. You may want to look at new brand extensions. So brand extensions would be ways that you can take what is your brand and find something that's adjacent to it, but maybe a new idea, but a way to extend that idea and what your brand promises. Now, don't dilute your brand. There's a difference between extending your brand and diluting your brand. Extending makes logical sense. It means that you're going into a direction that still honors your brand promise. Diluting means that you're doing something that doesn't necessarily correspond with your brand promise, but you're just trying to get the cachet of using your good name. And then lastly, you may want to expand your positioning and your vision. Take this moment, go in, really dig deep into what your positioning is. Look at your competitors. Who's still there? Who's gone away? How has the market changed? We know that we define our positioning by who you are, who your audience is, who your competition is, and what the market is doing. And you look at all of that together by what your unique selling proposition is and who your unique buying tribe is. And that's how you develop your position. And this may end up influencing your vision. You may say, you know what? We can be better than what we originally thought we could, because we see the opportunity. We see how the world has changed, and now we want to change to meet that. So really look for ways to expand your brand. Secondly, expand your relationships. With this, I'm talking about your current clients, or I'm talking possibly about your current vendors or partnerships that you may have, brand partnerships. You want to turn those your customers into raving fans, and then those loyal fans into active advocates. So if you have those new customers, now is the time to expand your relationship with them. And then those who are already your great fans, you want to turn those into advocates. So they're helping to spread the word about your brand, and that they're sharing what they love about your brand. So we all know that retaining current customers is easier than getting new customers. In some cases, it may be 5 times easier, 5 times less money or 5 times less time to retain a current customer than it is to go out and sell a new customer. They're 70% more likely to buy from you a new product because they have already got brand trust than somebody who's never heard of you. So you definitely want to make sure you're retaining those current customers. Now is a great time to understand them deeply. So really dig in. If you've never profiled your customer database, it's a great thing to do. It helps you to see the patterns that are developing. You may think you know everything about your customer, but when you dig in, when you look at the psychographics, maybe get a Prism profile going, and you're able to dig in and develop that persona, you may learn things about your clients that you never knew. Certain commonalities about them, and it may open your eyes to new ways to connect with them. You want to definitely show your appreciation also. Tell your clients how grateful you are. Don't just be cold and standoffish. Tell them how grateful you are that they've chosen to continue to follow your brand, and make sure that they just understand how important they are. You could start a loyalty or rewards program. This is something we've done with several of our clients, is beginning that rewards program that allows them to give appreciation to their loyal brand followers. And then also take this time to do a survey or a poll. Those are a great opportunity to get inside the mind of your current clients. Figure out what they love about you and what they need. You've heard me talk about the unique buying tribe. And that's the idea of identifying this tribe, this audience that you're going to go for, and then really becoming experts in that tribe and meeting their needs and knowing what their desires are and knowing what their next want may be, even before they know it themselves. That's when you become the brand that becomes invaluable. Obviously, one of the things you want to do to expand your relationship is just provide exceptional service. But I would also add to that, provide exceptional experiences. Think of new ways that you can provide an experience to your clients, a brand experience that is exceptional, that elevates your brand in their mind, that they walk away from that and say, wow, that was really easy. I'm sure we've all had online experiences, for instance, in buying where, wow, that was really super easy, versus some where it's like, wow, that was a lot more difficult and challenging than it really needed to be. And just providing that exceptional experience adds that extra bit of gloss to your brand in their mind. So building on that, now that you know all about this audience that you love, and you've come to understand all the wonderful things about not only their demographics, but also their personalities, then now is the time then to expand that audience. Go for something new. Now, I always like to think about expanding. You don't just expand from here all the way over to here. You expand by radiating out. So look at your current customers and then build out from there. One great way to do that is a referral program. Starting that is a way to not only get new audience, but it's also a way it bridges the gap and honors your current audience. Get them to refer their friends. Give them some benefit for referring their friends. Another great thing, we love to do this here, is to do what we call a lookalike audience. So when you've gone through and you've looked at your entire customer base and you've done that analysis, which we love to do that too. Once you've got that in, then you're able to go and do lookalike, which means you're going to find people who match those exact same demographics and psychographics. That gives you a whole array of potential customers that are already of the mindset that they are likely to accept your brand. Look for audience extensions. So look for ways to be in an audience that's adjacent to your current audience. So if you're saying, for instance, let me give you a great example. In real estate, a lot of times we will attract one audience to a community. And then we may find out later that, wow, now we've got these families here. Let's go after the grandparents. Let's say, because they would love to live in this neighborhood alongside the families. That's an example of an adjacent audience. That is somebody that knows your current audience and may benefit from the product maybe in a different way. You may want to consider testing a totally new market. Now, this may be a geographic market. This may be deciding to open up a second location. If you are not necessarily bound by geography, this may be shifting from one type of industry into an adjacent industry that may also be able to use your services or may be able to use your product in a new and interesting way. Now it's time to just go ahead and try those new tactics. If you are used to talking to your audience in just one way, now is the time to put a little bit of that marketing budget into a new tactic that you've never tried. Experiment with that, do some A/B testing, and really see whether or not that works for you. You may uncover a place where other people are not really talking to your audience, and so you may come through a little bit more clearer. And then lastly, what you want to be doing during this time, this is extremely important, is constantly filling your pipeline with new customers. They may not be ready to buy yet. They just met you. They don't know anything about your brand, but you can still build that interest list that you can begin to develop a relationship with. And eventually you will convert those into your clients, into your paid customers. So don't sit on your laurels now and just say, okay, I'm dealing with the people I have and I'm dealing with the business I have. Take the chance to start expanding. Another place that we want to expand is expanding your engagement. So providing new and exceptional branded experiences that bring surprise and joy. I love the idea of bringing surprise and joy to your clients. So one of the ways you can do that is show up in an unexpected place. And that may be physically showing up in an unexpected place, such as like a pop-up shop or something like that where, oh, wow, I've always wanted to try this, or, oh, wow, I've always wanted to see what this is about, a pop-up experience in a physical space. Or perhaps showing up online, partnering with an influencer so that suddenly, oh, wow, here's this brand that I like, this brand that I've always been interested in, and now I have this new opportunity to explore with them. We love helping our clients come up with new and unexpected places where they can show up. You want to start to do better and more content. So this means if you have never written a blog before, now's the time to start. If you've never done video before, now may be the time to start doing that. Start putting more and more content out there that helps people to find you, helps people to understand your brand. And as much as you possibly can, it helps when you can make that content something that's very appealing. Look for ways that you can be unexpected and provide something surprising and interesting and maybe even fun for your client base as far as content goes. I love one idea is thinking about like what the at-home or at-office version of your brand is, not just virtual. So for instance, a local paper company, she used to every year, she would have her annual tea party where we would all go and she would give out all the paper samples and it was all great fun. Well, she thought of a great way of doing that. She packaged everything up herself by hand. She sent that out to all of the people who were going to be at the tea party, and we all were able to open that up and experience it one by one, kind of going through those papers as she talked us through the samples. How can you do something similar to that at their office or at their home, since they're not going to be able to have as many physical experiences? I also really want to just take this moment to say, take the time to do virtual well. Take the time to get your lighting set up, to get your audio set up, to make sure that you're doing it well. Now, that is not to say that if you are out with your cell phone and you need to do a Facebook Live or something to not do that, keep doing those. Those are fantastic and those are great. But take the time to think about, to look at what's really working, what you are attracted to. If you're attracted to it, chances are your audience are going to be attracted to, and pick up those great tips. We love to help our clients do video production and to kind of think of those ways that they can make those virtual tours just a little bit better, or those virtual experiences just a little bit better. So take that time to really think it through and do virtual well. And be shareable. Give content, this kind of relates to having better and more content. Give content that people are able to quickly share and make it easy for them to share. Make sure that that like button or that share button is there on your content so that they're able to pass it on. Go ahead and post that blog article onto LinkedIn as an article on LinkedIn so that people can share it. it just makes expanding your chances for engagement just that much stronger. And our final way of expanding is not being afraid to expand ideas. And this means whether in-house or customer-facing, you want to consciously seek continuous improvement. So you want to create those SMART goals. You want to create those goals that are relevant and timely, that have all of those components. You want to examine and maybe improve your processes internally. Now, we had a full webinar about things to look at your internal team. I encourage you to go back and look at that for even more detail, but look at those internal processes, because it's possible that now is the time to really expand internally or change things up. Look at ways that you can make your team run a little more efficiently, a little more smoothly. You may want to spend some time trying to think of that breakthrough innovation. Right now, you may have some of your office staff or some of your team, they don't have as many projects to work on. Now is the time to assign them, instead of letting them just kind of mull around, assign them to really work on breakthrough innovation. Try and think about, like, how could we completely do what we do in a different way? Say, if we weren't able to do this, we already experienced, if we weren't able to meet face-to-face, what would we do? We'll take away something else. If we're not able to do this, how would we do this? Give yourself these parameters that you're going to work within, and then you'll be prepared for the next time. Or you may come up with a really great breakthrough that ends up just skyrocketing your business. Think about maybe an unserved market. Like we talked about before, these adjacent markets or these adjacent industries, things where you may be like, oh, well, if this company uses it, maybe the company that services them could use it also for this. So you can look at the way your customers utilize your product or service and think about how you could maybe look into an unserved market, somebody that nobody's going after, but you could maybe with a small shift bring your services or your product to them. And then overall, throughout all of this, when you're expanding your ideas, look for things that you can do to test and measure. You really want to be able to find out if they're working. So go through, measure, and then at the end, test. Have your set of goals that at the front that you're going to go for, your objectives, measure, and then test against those objectives and see where you need to change up for the next time. So just to review those things, there's 5 places that we think in your branding and your marketing, especially related, that you can expand that brand, strengthen it. You really want to make it powerful in people's minds. Expand your current relationships. Your customers, we know your current customers are very important, and you really want to maintain your relationships with them and strengthen those. Expanding your market and your audience. Look for adjacent audiences, lookalike audiences, ways that you can tap into new people by learning from the people you're currently working with. Expanding engagement. Look for new ways to touch base with those clients. It could be those pop-up experiences. It could be a new way to do virtual. And then finally, take the time to expand ideas. Be innovative right now. Now is the time to take a moment, step back, and really figure out how to make your next step even greater. If you follow these things, then now is the time when you can really spread your wings and you can begin to soar. This webinar is available online now. The deck and notes can be made available upon request. And for more speaking workshops and insights, you can look at the ableagency.com. If you have any questions, my name is Hugh Firebaugh, and you can email me at hugh@theableagency.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So for now, thanks a lot for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.